Okay, well, hello people. So in this video, I'm just gonna show you a use case of physics constraints in Unreal. So I have prepared this level, and I've got this hanging actor, a physics door, and a physics card. So I'll quickly show you what exactly they are. So I can just go around, and by the way, I'm using a cable component for the string. Of course, you can use a static mesh or whatever you want to use, but yeah, I'm using a cable for us. What actually, I don't remember what it's called. Yeah, a cable component, sorry. Yeah, so I can just push them, and based on physics, they just, you know, I can just move, push them around, and they behave based on physics. Yeah, which is pretty cool. And now this door, which is completely physics based, of course, it's kind of very stiff right now, and I have to change a few variables. So yeah, but yeah, it works as well. And then at last, I've got this little physics car, which I've got suspension as well. So let me just restart the game, and I can go ahead and I can push this cart, and you will see I can go through over it, and this cylinders or the wheels are rotating based on physics, and they have got some suspension as well. As you can see that the tires does move up on the z-axis, I should say. So yeah, we have that kind of movement as well. So yeah, that's the basic idea. So let's just go over all of these actors and how exactly they work, so you can get a basic idea of how exactly physics constraints work in India. Right. So for this actor and this actor, and there are BP hanging actor. Uh, in this blueprint, what I've got is, first of all, I have got a cable component as the root component, to which I have attached a physics constraint, and to the same cable component or the root component, I have attached a static mesh as well. And the and end of the cable component is attached to the static mesh. That's why it's going into the mesh. So the pivot point of this tube is at the very center. So yeah, and the physics constraint is placed right here because this is the point from where I want to simulate the physics or drive the movement from. Yeah, and now if I select the PC component, you can see I have two components. The component name one and component name two. In component name one is the physics constraint itself, but this is going to be a pivot point, and this particular point is not going to move. And yeah, it's not going to move because the cable component is also not going to move. So this component is static relative to the world. So yeah, I can use this as a pivot, or so that's why I have a PC component here. And then the second component is the static mesh. So this is the component that is being simulated by this physics constraint. So I have selected typed in static mesh. This is the name of the component. And then of course, then we have some offset and everything. I'll just ignore that for now. Now the main thing we have is the linear limits. It is locked because I don't want my cube to move like this. I, instead I want the rotation movement based on the physics constraint. So that's why I have logged all of the linear limits, and I have uh, enabled the angular limits, but only for the swing motion. And that too is limited. So basically, the swing motion refers to either this or this. Yep. So, and I've limited that to 80 in both of the axes. Yeah. And then what another main thing is, and actually, yeah. So one thing which is not important in this case, but is usually very important when we using the physics constraint between two meshes, which is this Boolean disable collision. You always want to make sure that this is checked on, because in most it's only a number of cases when you're going to need it as disabled. So I just tend to set it to true all the time. So then of course you can select the physics constraint and with these values, damping, stiffness for the string limits, of course, and we have the same for twist limits as well. And then again, for this part, I'm going to ignore the linear motor because we are not using linear limits, of course. Now we are using angular motor, or actually we are using angular limits, so we need angular motor. So once a force is applied and the physics constraints actually simulates the physics and the mesh moves based on that, and the cable components endpoint as well, since this is connected to the static mesh, we want that static mesh to stabilize itself again after a certain time, or slowly interpolate to its original position. So we have two um, motors here. First is the target orientation, which is slowly just, I wouldn't say it's interpolation, but it's still physics based. So basically, it makes the simulated mesh go back to its original rotation. And I'm using the twist and swing, even though we are not using twist, so I can check this all, but I'm just doing, yeah, all that. And of course, then we define strength as well. And then we can set a target velocity as well. I think I'm using the target velocity in the case of the fifth toe. I'm just going to note that as well for now. So yeah, now let's just say I disable these. You'll hopefully will see some difference. So, yep, let's keep going. Now, if I go back, then I think I'll just make this 150. Let's see how that works. You can see, and right now, of course, the strength is a bit too much, so of course, it's behaving very weirdly. So, I'll just make it 50. So yeah, that works better. And one thing I want to mention that in case whenever you are using physics constraint, you need to be very careful of what your numbers are, or whether the values that you have set your properties to. Because of course, they matter a lot, because there are a lot of forces being applied here and there on the mesh or the physics constraint itself. So yeah, just keep in mind to check these values again and again. Or yeah. So now let's go to fixed door. Now for this one, I've got a physics constraint and a static mesh again. And this time, if I select the PC component, again I see the same pattern. The PC component as component name 1 and the static mesh as component name 2, because again the static mesh needs to be moved or simulated, right? And then, and one thing, this static mesh does need to simulate physics over here as well for this simulate physics checkbox. Yeah. And then let's go back to this component. And again, this time Boolean limits are locked and only the swing one motion is enabled with a limit of 90 degrees. Because of course I want the door to rotate like this, and I don't want any motion like this. So this. So yeah, I've disabled all the other motion, rotation motion. And then if I come back, I have this angular motor again. I have the target orientation. The target is 0, 0, and 0. And the strength is 50. So actually, since the door is a bit too stiff, let's try just a 15. Let's see how that goes. Yeah, I think it's a bit better. But yeah, you can always play around with these numbers and see what exactly works for you. And there's not just this number, actually, there's a whole bunch of, damping, stiffness. There's a whole bunch of properties that you might want to play around with. But I'm just giving you, you an overview. And by the way, this max force is a value that you can set here. So basically, to get the orientation and the velocity correct, as I said, it's applying some forces on the simulated mesh. So we can limit those forces by setting this value here. It's I think it's going to be limitless if it's set it to 0. Yeah, it's going to be limitless if it's set it to 0. It can be unlimited based on the calculations it does under the hood. So yeah, and then of course the target velocity is 0 as well. I can decrease the strength of the 2 as well, and see if I can notice a difference again. Mm, well, Yeah, there's definitely some difference. It's kind of hard to notice, but yeah, there is definitely some difference. I'm not sure if you can notice it through a video, but yes, this is way off now. Not the movement I would want, but yeah, we can see some difference. Now, let's go to the physics card. Now, this one looks a bit more complex, but it isn't because it's again it's pretty much the same thing, but just multiple physics constraint components. So basically, this time I've got this base mesh for the or the frame of the card, and then I have got a physics component. Then I have got another physics component. Then I've got the wheel mesh. So basically, just ignore all of these components for now. Let's just discuss about these four components. This is the frame as and it's yes, it is simulating physics as well. And then we have got a physics constraint component which helps this wheel to rotate itself. So, and you can also see this red circle over here, which represents okay, this mesh can move like this. And actually, if I set this motion to free, you can see it would be able to rotate like this as well, which of course I don't want, so I'll keep it locked. And yeah, so all of the other are locked. And actually, let me just go back. And yeah, now this time I reversed the order. This time the component name one is FL for the forward left wheel component, the static mesh, because the card base mesh is also simulating physics. So I want this particular wheel to act as what should I say, uh, like this wheel should be supporting this frame mesh. So basically, if I have one wheel, it would still stand straight without any issues, right? So yeah, and for this mesh, I have some additions. Yeah, I think it's just I think we can just set them to zero. Well, let's just ignore them for now. I'll take a look at that later. Now, again, I have disabled the collision, so the wheel doesn't collide with the frame mesh. And then the linear limits are locked for this one. I'll explain motors when we get to suspension, but for this the rotation physics constraint, it is locked. Now, in angular limits, only swing to motion is enabled, which is free because I don't want I want my wheel to rotate any angle it wants, so it really doesn't matter because it's going to be at the same angle. It really doesn't matter for the wheel. Yeah, and now again, same thing. I've got target velocity in the angular motor. Um, Only the swing is enabled and the damping is one. So yeah, that's pretty much the same thing. Now, now for suspension, I have set the angular limits all to free because they are being simulated by this physics constraint instead. And actually, I can set this to free here as well, since these are simulated by this component. But yeah, actually, but yeah, I'll just keep it locked because it's overriding this since this is a child component. And actually, I'll show you that it does work. The suspension does work. So yeah, you can see there's not a lot of movement allowed, but yeah, there is some movement happening in the wheels, in the z-axis, right? Now, this little green line represents how much can it move. But of course, that is, the maximum limit needs quite some force, so it doesn't actually reaches that point. So it's kind of stays in between that. Yeah, and the limit, and actually this time it's not locked, but it's not free either. That's limited, and the limit is 20, and that's hence that I get that green line. I can set that to 50 and the green light is more stretched now. And yeah, I can just value and play around with it. Yeah, then pretty much the same thing again. I have got the target velocity. Yeah, so pretty much the same thing. And then I've repeated the same process for all the other three wheels as well. And then I get this nice cut. Actually, I've got this cut here as well. With the patient too. Oh wait, it was patient. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, you'll see how it responds to the cylinder placed in its way. So actually, let's make the suspension a bit more powerful. So tapping will be 0.2 and limit. Let's make it 30 so it can have a bigger range to simulate into. Let's see. So you can see it's a bit more smoother now. And it almost passed this cylinder as well, but yeah, I think this one is just too big for the gap. So yeah, this is just a basic idea of this constraint. I know I haven't explained everything. I've just given this was a very brief overview. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you can do with the constraint, like especially there's a lot of I have seen there are a lot of tutorials, especially for making chains with the physics constraints. And you can make other stuff like with this like pistons, then let's say a physics-based bridge. Then yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff that you can do with it. So yeah, um, yeah, I think that's all for this video. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.